All right, so for this video, and at first glance, the Sanitaire Hydroclean might look like it's a carbon copy of the Bissell Crosswave. There is a reason for that. For those of you that don't already know, Bissell owns Sanitaire. They have for the past few years. So naturally, a lot of the Bissell machines have made the crossover to Sanitaire, where they have beefed them up, made them a little bit more sturdy and better built for commercial usage. That's where this comes in. These machines are similar, but there are some pretty big key differences between them. Now, I do want to preface this by saying that I bought this Sanitaire with my own money. They did not send this machine to me to replace this Crosswave. It's approaching 8 years of life. It's served me very well. The build quality is starting to show its age. So I figured I would upgrade to this unit because this one I felt cleaned really well. I only use it in my downstairs to clean tile floors. That's it. It is made to be used for rugs and stuff like that, but I very rarely have ever used it for rugs. It almost as always has been used for tile floors. Of course, we've got some help going on. So between these two machines, first obvious difference between both of them is of course the color change, but there is a reason for that. The Sanitaire is in fact built quite a bit better than the Bissell Crosswave. And you can see that in the construction of the power nozzle. The power nozzle on the Crosswave is thinner plastic. You can tell it's just not made all that well compared to the harder and tougher grade plastic that they use for the Sanitaire. So in addition to the build quality and the construction of the power nozzle, the Sanitaire version also gets you larger rear wheels as well as steel axles. That's a welcome addition. On the Crosswave, you can see that there's a definite size difference. The wheels on the Sanitaire are probably about 1/4 inch, maybe 1/3 of an inch larger, but on the Bissell, plastic axles. Now, obviously, I've never had a problem with these, but it is something to take into consideration. If you do plan on using one of these for a commercial purpose, you might not get a good amount of life out of the Crosswave as compared to this machine here. We'll just go ahead and flip them over. Now, both models feature a squeegee here on the bottom. The process to remove the squeegee appears to be the same, just a couple screws, and it looks like it comes right out. Both machines have a swivel feature, but I will say before we get to it later in the video, the swivel feature on the Sanitaire is much more precise, and you can kind of see why. They've built it up a little bit better than they did on the Crosswave. And one other sort of welcome feature is you can actually see the pickup hose inside of the power nozzle. On this machine, you cannot. It's got this cover in the way. But closer look at the wheels. They are rubberized on the Crosswave, and you can just see the rolling difference that a plastic versus steel axle can make. And that is another big difference that I noticed pushing this one as opposed to this one. This one's quite a bit easier to push. This one's not horrible, but that's one of the reasons why. Smaller wheels, plastic axles, they just don't spin as well. Closer look at the swivels here. I'm going to be moving them the same amount of pressure on both hands. The Sanitaire can swivel a lot further and a lot greater of a radius as opposed to the Crosswave. Same amount of force. The handles are both parallel with each other, but the Sanitaire can go quite a bit further to the right or to the left. It's also substantially easier to move. While the swivel is nice and it's useful on the Crosswave, having used this machine for almost 8 years, the Sanitaire is a much better system. It's much more refined. Now, one other difference between these is if you are looking to clean area rugs, the Sanitaire is not really made for that. They don't have a brush available. like they do for the Bissell. And while we're still on the power nozzles and now we're talking about brush rolls, this is the brush roll for this machine. They give you 3 of these, or they're supposed to give you 3. And then here is the brush roll for the Crosswave for area rugs. And you can see it's got about 1 inch of length to it. But as I said, they do not have one of these type of brushes for the Hydroclean. This is strictly just for the Crosswave. There are a couple other brushes you can get, but unfortunately they do not make one available for the Hydroclean. And you can just see, here's a better example representation of how small this brush roll really is in comparison. We'll pull this one off too, because I do want to talk about the nozzle covers. A little bit extra money that you pay for one of these, you just have to gauge if that's worth it to you or not, because that's going to be your size difference. But if you want to do area rugs, that could be the deal breaker. Removing the brush rolls is the same process on both units. You just have these simple tabs here on the side, pull out, put back in. Now, another area where Bissell did improve upon the Crosswave design, they really did beef up these nozzle covers. On the Sanitaire, you get a locking mechanism. On this one, you don't. It's just compression fit. Not a horrible design. I've never had issues with this one. I've never had to replace it, so it's probably fine. And again, this thing is beefed up for more commercial usage, so you might have a little bit more issues with something like this using it commercially as opposed to the Sanitaire, which is already built to handle commercial usage. Now, one other thing that is interesting is on the Crosswave, you have this separate squeegee here where it's supposed to allow itself to seal itself to the floor. This is a wearable part. Using this commercially, it will end up wearing out, and Sanitaire or Bissell will have you replace this entire thing. This strip is not replaceable on its own, even though you can remove the screws and replace it. On the Sanitaire, the design's a little bit different. It's all plastic. It might not be able to seal as well because this is more flexible, obviously, being some sort of nitrile infused rubber or something like that, some sort of rubberized squeegee. This one is just strictly hard plastic, but in my own tests using this thing around the house, I feel it seals itself to the tile just fine, and it cleans and does its job just fine. Haven't had any issues. You also have these pivot points on the Crosswave. You can see these are just 2 clear plastic tabs. We all know what happens to clear plastic as it ages. It cracks. You know, sometimes maybe you run this thing into something a little bit too hard. You do risk damaging the sides of this. Maybe it flexes too much, and something like this can end up breaking. On the Sanitaire, it's all thick, chunky plastic. Not sure what the longevity of something like that would be, but I would guess that the Sanitaire is built up a little bit better here, because you can see they actually did reinforce these plastic tabs a little bit. That's not been done on the Bissell. Reinstalling these is pretty simple. Now these 2 clear tabs, they go back into the Bissell, and both of these spots for them to go are not rubberized, they're not beefed up. On the Sanitaire they are. These do have like some sort of rubberized coating that they put over them, it feels like. Obviously it's, you know, the black plastic, it's built much better. That's all you do. Put it back on, locks in place, not coming out. And the Bissell, as I said, is just compression fit. And those 2 tabs for that go right here. That's all they use to keep this thing in place. I've never had any issues with it, as I've said, but if you use this thing commercially, you might have issues with it. So, dirty water tanks. The dirty water tanks, at first glance, both appear to be the same, but if you look closely, there are a pretty big difference. you have a different filter size for the Sanitaire. And the filter has this very handy pull tab on it, as well as all the indentations to go with it. The filter for the Crosswave you cannot use in the Sanitaire, and vice versa. It does not work. Let's see, maybe we can swap this piece to this one. I'm gonna say no, it's not gonna work because you can even see it. On the Sanitaire, you have this ridge that goes around here that helps keep the red one in place. Let's see if the red one will fit. The red one fits a lot better than the green one fits in the Sanitaire, that's for sure. But anyways, if you're going to look at buying parts for these, I would make sure that you get it for the correct machine and don't try and mix and match these parts together, because you're going to have a hard time. It appears that both containers are about the same size. They can hold the same amount of liquid. So other than the filter sizes and apparently the dimensions of the inside of the dirty water container, I'm going to go ahead and say that they're both different, but they likely hold the same amount of fluid. So looking up at the handles of both machines, on the Sanitaire you do get a very welcome feature. The Bissell does not have anything here, obviously the Sanitaire does. The Sanitaire has this really nice self-clean feature. Here's a clip of that. And really quick, we'll do a self-clean, but so it's just supposed to run for about 60 seconds. The solution just stops, so now it's just soaking up the rest of it. And it works really well. I've used it a few times because it seals itself to the tile so well that it does a good job cleaning the brush roll. The Bissell, depending on the model you purchase, when you bought it and what kind of sale they were running or wherever you bought it from, you might get a cleaning tray for the Crosswave. Now the cleaning tray kind of does the same thing that this feature does with the Sanitaire, except there's a little bit more involved with getting the Crosswave to clean itself out. You actually have to recline it back to get it to spin the brush roll and let it sit in place in your hand while it's running and doing everything as it should. You also get these idiot lights. You get an empty light here, which has popped on once already as I've been using it. Once the fluid gets to a certain level, the stopper inside triggers a switch, shuts the machine off, turns the light on. Really easy, self-explanatory. Same thing with your soap container, solution container, I should say. You run out of fluid in this, it's gonna trip a switch, and it's gonna light that up and tell you that, hey, it needs more solution put into the bottle. While we're talking about that, we'll go ahead and flip this around. The solution bottles are definitely a different size between them. Now, there is a very good reason for that. The Sanitaire, because you only have one setting, on or off, with of course the trigger, this thing goes through solution very quickly compared to this one. Because this one, you have two different settings. You have rug, which pumps out a little bit more solution, and hard floor, which pumps out less. This thing, it's hard to say how much it's pumping out, but I would say it's probably pumping out at least as much as this one does in rug setting, if not more. So while depending on whatever setting you're going to have this on, you're not going to run through solution nearly as quickly as you are with one of these. That is one difference that I've noticed between them and having used both of them. So that is something to keep in mind. There is a big reason why they include a larger bottle on this machine compared to the smaller one on the Crosswave. I don't think you can switch. Well, I stand corrected. You can use the smaller solution bottle in the Crosswave. Maybe we can get And it looks like you can use the bigger bottle in the Crosswave. You can use the smaller bottle in the Sanitaire. So that's interesting. The only two parts that work, handles are removable, and you can probably swap them, but I don't know how much good that's going to do you because obviously the settings on the handle are different. So I don't know how the Crosswave is going to read having a handle with just an on-off switch, what setting it's going to run in just by default. I have no idea. Same goes with this one, trying to run it in a different setting based on the handle. I don't know how the circuitry is inside it. It's not really something I would recommend, and I don't really want to try that. Both machines, because they work with water, feature a standard 3-wire cord. Now, even though this is a 3-wire cord on the Crosswave, it's not really commercial rated. There are some commercial vacuums out there that have a commercial cord in this gauge, but this is I believe it's an 18 wire gauge cord, so it's standard vacuum cleaner sized. 25 feet, and you can't remove it without disassembling the machine down here and patching in a new cord if you have to replace the cord. Sanitaire, definitely different. That's the biggest feature of this machine is you get a 30-foot extension cord, thick cord that they include with it. That one's 18 gauge. This one is a 16 wire gauge cord. So it's substantially thicker. You get 5 more feet, and keep this in mind, you also get this really nice feature. Say you need to replace the cord, well, this is all you do. You just undo this thing, unplug it, and there you go. You can pull the whole cord off the machine and replace it if you need to. Now this stays with the machine, so you could conceivably get an extension cord as long as the plug here is the same size. Big deal. Then you just throw that back down, and that's it. So very nice feature. Like I said, 5 extra feet of cord, and that's pretty much all there is to that. Looking at the handles, best I can tell, they're both made out of the same material. They flex about the same, not really much of a difference there. The only real difference between these handles is, of course, as I've already mentioned, you have different settings on the handle themselves. On the handle for the Sanitaire, you have a thicker cord hook here, which is much more suited to using this thicker, heavier cord than it does for this one, which just has this much lighter, smaller, cheaper made cord hook. Both of them are able to do that so you can unwrap the cord. So that's a nice feature as well. Both handles have the feature where you can stick the cord through the hook to keep the cord up where your hand is operating the machine at. So now we're going to do a sound test. Now what I'm going to do is have machines both facing the same direction because the exhaust is coming out right here. So you guys will hear that a little bit better. So first thing we'll do, turn on the Crosswave. Crosswave. There is a little bit of a difference. I want to say that the Sanitaire is just a hair quieter, not by much, but there is a difference I can hear. I don't know how well that's going to be picked up on the camera, but again, if that's something that's important, the Sanitaire might be the choice for you. Now, as far as the rest of the specifications go, there is a pretty big weight difference with the Sanitaire. It is a heavier machine by a few pounds. The Crosswave weighs about 11 pounds or so with the cord off. The Sanitaire with the cord off weighs just a hair over 13 pounds. So obviously if you have both cords wrapped up, the Sanitaire is going to be quite a bit heavier than the Crosswave will, because the Crosswave has a thinner cord with not as much length to it. Which leaves us with the price. Now, I didn't pay full retail for this machine. I bought it as an Amazon warehouse deal, so I got it at about the same price. You could have picked one of these up brand new at the time when I bought this one. This one I did not pay full price for either. I got it off of eBay from Bissell's manufacturer outlet store, whatever it is. It was a reman unit, and I bought it for just over $110. So at the time I got a screaming deal on this thing. That was right when they first came out, and they were like $300 back then, brand new. This, I think they go for about 200-ish, somewhere around there now. Correct price at the time of this video, you would have just seen it, I would have added it into the clip. This one you're going to end up paying a little bit more for. Retail, full retail is about $300. I've seen them new for about $280-ish, somewhere around there. This one I spent like $150 on. So a little bit more than this one. So if you are fine with doing an Amazon warehouse deal, definitely go ahead and pick one up for that price. Would I spend $300 on the Sanitaire? Probably not, but I've never really bought anything like this brand new before. I've always been perfectly fine with buying something off of a warehouse deal or secondhand off eBay, as long as it's been looked after, and I've always been able to fix anything that I've bought. So that doesn't bother me. But if you've got to have new, would I spend new price on either one of these? That kind of changes things a little bit. If I'm paying new prices for either one, I would probably still go with the Sanitaire. Just because that $100 difference or so, it's not, you get so much more for your money when you spend, just $100 more on the Sanitaire as opposed to the Crosswave. The Crosswave's just not built as well. It does its job perfectly fine. It's lasted me 8 years, but honestly, I am pretty happy with the Sanitaire so far. Which really leaves us with the end of this video. I think that I'm happy with this purchase simply because the Sanitaire is a much more refined unit than the Crosswave was. You can tell it just by using it and running it that they really did their homework with the parts of the Sanitaire machine that they decided to change, make better, beef up. It is not the same machine as the Crosswave. In all honesty, either machine, depending on your needs, will work out for you just fine. In terms of hard floor cleaners, I really like the Crosswave. Would I recommend the Sanitaire if you're looking between the two? Yes. For me, I would definitely buy the Sanitaire again. But as I said, it depends on your usage needs and what you expect to get out of a machine like this. I do have a full, thorough review on the Hydroclean coming up, so stay tuned for that and stay tuned for more videos.